Hi there, and welcome to episode 191 of the ADHD Adults podcast. I'm ignoring you. From the people, no, I'm not doing. There's a plug for the book written in here, and I'm not doing it because it makes me want to vomit into my own ears. I'm James Bryan, the man who once confused being hungry with being sad for 3 years, and I'm joined as usual by Dr. Alex Connell, the man who's only ever had one feeling, and it's probably a mistake. And we're sadly without the woman who struggles to explain anything, including how she feels, Mrs. ADHD, because of prolonged tiredness. Alex, hi.
Hi, need a poo. I can feel that. I like it when you like my hello.
Fuck.
You laughed at hi, need a poo. Amazing. That one might reflect the fact that James changed the order as well. So we would normally record in order and he changed it, and I hadn't thought of a better one, so I had to just say that.
And it works better than the ones you think of. Anyway, how are you both, Mrs. No. Sorry, I'm tired. I'm confused now. How are you, Alex?
I'm excellent. Thank you, James. Thank you for asking so professionally. I've just got back from failing to see an eagle at the top of an Alp. And I got back to it, which is still amazing. I got back to a text from James that said, "How was your trip stealing eggs?" And then another text from a publisher saying, "Why don't you mention the book on your podcast?" Which shows that neither of them listen. And why would they? One of who has sent us a letter? I don't know.
What Mireille has?
I don't know. It's from a Robert from Kidderminster. It writes itself. I get AI to do it. It says, the letter from your dad, it says, "I listened to your last episode on resilience, and apart from laughing at Alex having human emotions, James's resilience was mainly reflected in not dying off of garlic bread and sunlight." He goes on to say, "Not because he's a Dracula, but because he's incredibly pale and picky about food." Thank you, Robert. That's accurate.
It's fucking spot on, that, isn't it?
It is. Picky is so ableist, isn't it, when you have sensory issues, which I do. You are, though, and fidgety.
Yes, I'm pale.
And lazy. We've had a real letter. Can I read it out?
I'd normally say no, but I think I know it's from, so yes.
It's from Katie Von Beast. It says, and then there's some emoticons, James, that I don't understand. And it says,
a bath.
Oh, yeah, a toilet. I haven't got my, glasses.
A bath, tornado, and a balloon.
I thought it was a bird, a toilet, and a lollipop. It's from Katie Von Beast from, God help me, Middle America. "I'm writing to you from across the pond, aka America, land of toxic positivity, not seeing matters of importance through any lens of reality, motivational water bottles, and apparently kale, to say thank you. Thank you for being the delightfully chaotic, brutally honest, and fucking relatable. We need your real human," and then in parentheses, James, it says, "and Dracula voices. ADHD can be desperately lonely when you are convinced that you are the only one who is square pegging, ding, it into a round hole. Double ding, which in itself is a ding. Listening to you all has helped me start making peace with my brain after a lifetime of perfectionism, people-pleasing, and being dismissed as just anxious or too sensitive. Even as a kid, my distress went unnoticed because I was quiet, high-achieving, and never made a scene, just quietly falling apart in ways no one saw. After being repeatedly brushed off, even when begging for help, I stopped trusting that anyone could or would actually understand until I found this podcast. There's something beautiful in the way you've created this community where we can laugh, cry, rage, and spiral in solidarity. You've taught me things my teachers and therapists should have told me, but didn't. You've helped me feel less alone in a world that often tells me to just try harder. Why, yes, I have actually tried 3,000 different planners. Fuck you very much. While I'm clinging to any executive function I may have, like it's a tweaked out, greased up ferret. I genuinely love you weirdos like family. Please never stop being delightfully unhinged. It's medicine. Katie, that's an amazing letter. I don't know what to do with it. Grateful.
A tactic I was working with a client on recently is to I've forgotten, is to
thank you.
Is to it's like accept and thank, but the phrase has gone, is to acknowledge or thank and truth is to thank. So you would say thank you, we've tried hard at this, we haven't.
No, I had to learn that it diminishes people if you tell them to fuck off when they give you a compliment. You're literally telling them they're liars. You idiot liars!
I know.
But it doesn't feel like that, does it? It's very
No,
good. Thank
and
you, Katie.
I suppose for you don't receive many, do you? So it's different. Anyway,
I've had a compliment.
I've had a compliment. As usual, this charity shop copy of 50 Shades of Grey with suspiciously glazed pages of a podcast.
Isn't that what we did last week?
Oh, it's not, is it?
I hope so.
It's not, is it really?
You've double-fisted 50 Shades of Grey.
I've double-fisted 50 Shades of Grey. Okay.
I think so.
Oh,
Might not
God.
have done.
Okay. This sniff test on a t-shirt that you really should have washed first of a podcast is a tragedy in 3 parts. We choose a theme. Last time around, we covered ADHD and not hormones because I moved it resilience. Moved it without asking anyone. And this week, we're going to be discussing ADHD and interoception, or the process of sensing internal signals from the body or something. Alex will explain it. Anyway, the 3 parts, as usual, include the Jason Orange of evidence, Alex the psycho.
Okay, that's good.
Educated monkey. Talking about the evidence around interoception, we'll give our personal reflections and possibly a tip or two, Ding, in the second part, and then we'll answer some questions in the final section as well, you know. So, Alex, you're tone deaf when it comes to your own body and, you know, your sense of humour. Go.
Go. Righto. I'm not an expert in anything, but particularly not interoception. James, for professorial reasons that don't fit with the podcast, is more of an expert than I am. But what I will say is that the fantastic science communicator Caroline Williams has a new book out called, in a sense, How the New Science of Interoception Can Transform Your Health. And James and I are big fans of Caroline. She's Team Us, I think I'm allowed to say that. And she sent us a note to say that there hasn't been loads of research yet, specifically in ADHD, but there does seem to be a link with poorer interoception. She's sent us loads of information that's been really helpful for this. I just wanted to big up Caroline Williams and a new book. Having said
Are we in the pocket of big Caroline Williams?
That's the best one ever. I write that down. In the pocket of big Caroline Williams. It makes us seem like that 6-inch grandpa comic from the olden days. That's brilliant. Oh, right. Cut that. Telling James is funny. So, having said that, interoception is basically your brain's way of figuring out what the hell is going on inside your body. Ding. Originally, it was just about noticing when your insides were doing something weird, but now we know it's way more complicated. It's not just, my tummy hurts, Daddy. James. The way your eyes close with pain and me calling you Daddy, it's that's going to be a repeat customer, isn't it? No, it isn't. Interoception is a multi-step biological process as your nervous system tries to sense and make sense of, and sometimes even do something about, internal signals, whether you're aware of it or not. And these signals come from all over the body: heart, lungs, gut, bladder, in James's case, the appendix, because he's really old, and so it's vestigial, but yours actually does. I'm regretting that joke. Moving on. Basically, the full biological circus. And you liked that appendix joke.
I did, yeah. I was trying to work out what it would do in a Dracula, but carry on.
And these include everything from pain and temperature to that weird muscle tension you get when you've been clenching your jaw since 2006. But not wetness, James. Not wetness. Because we can't sense wetness. That's not all.
Yes, blood.
Yeah, we can sense blood. One of us can. That's not all. Interoception isn't just a glorified body status update. It's key to keeping things running smoothly. That's homeostasis. Everyone has to do that at school. And that's the balance. And it's key to predicting what's coming up next, probably, so your body can prepare. That's allostasis, which sounds made up, but is sort of real.
Allostasis?
Yeah. This helps with hunger and thirst and emotional responses and attention and memory and decision-making, and even that nebulous feeling of being a person living inside of a body instead of just a haunted meat suit around a skeleton. And when it's working properly, it gives us that nice sense of safety I've read about, the kind of bodily trust many of us haven't experienced since before puberty, or ever, probably.
So far, this is... let me just check my notes. Fascinating. Carry on or not, I don't care.
Thanks, James. Okay, it's a tangled mess, interoception, of what's going on in my body and do I even notice? Researchers have tried to break it down. One well-known model from Garfinkel and Critchley, Paul Simon was acknowledged but didn't get on the ship. That's a joke for academics. I particularly like Garfinkel and Critchley's Bridge Over Troubled Water. They split interoception into 3 bits. IAC, interoceptive accuracy. So can you objectively detect what your body's doing? Like, can you count your own heartbeat without cheating? This is your body's signal reading skill. And then you've got sensibility, interoceptive sensibility, IS, which they need to think of a new thing for. So how aware are you of your internal states? This is vibes. They measure it by questionnaires or confidence ratings, and it's about self-perception, and it's really woolly in the science because it's hard to control that. And then awareness, so interoceptive awareness, metacognition part, the real you, how good are you at knowing what you're feeling and what to do? And we know about metacognition, I know. So this is how well your confidence, your sensibility, the IS one, matches your actual performance, your interoceptive accuracy, the other one. Insight, maybe it's called, and it's the bit where everything often falls apart for people with neurodevelopmental conditions. And these 3 don't always match up, of course. You can be super confident and also incredibly wrong, like when James talks about sobriety. Confident and
but I was sober for 14 years, I'll have you know.
Were you?
They were from birth till the age of 14.
First, oh, I see what you've done.
But still, carry on. This is probably interesting.
The model has critics. Sensibility. It's a bit messy, that, right? Well, blending different things like attention to your bodily sensations and belief in how accurate you are, and what does awareness even mean? And so people have proposed a different one. One model says, let's separate how interoception is measured. So the tasks we have to do and the self-reporting from what it's measuring, accuracy of it, and paying attention to what our body's doing. The idea is that different methods are probably tapping into different things, which might explain why the research results contradict each other quite often. There's quite a few factors, well, probably like 6, that are involved in this interoception, but it's a boring list to clicks on. Interoceptive attention. Focusing on your body on purpose. I do that. I focus on James's body on purpose. Detection. Noticing whether a signal is even there, whether you do that on purpose or not. Magnitude. That's an X-man. Discrimination. It's not. It's how strong something is. Discrimination. Telling one sensation from another. Hunger and thirst are really common problems, I think, knowing which one's which. It's all for me. Appraisal. That's fump. Judging what the signal means. Am I having a heart attack, or is it just that I'm nervous or horny? And then insight, knowing whether you're good at any of those things. Basically, James, for you, the science has moved on from pretending you know how fast your heart is beating to recognizing that this is a wildly complex thing. This is especially relevant in ADHD, for example, where you can score fucking terribly on one part of it, but really feel like you're tuned in and empathetic to yourself and, oh yeah, I absolutely know myself. And then if you measure it, shite. Or actually, vice versa.
When you said magnitude, all I could think of was Pop from Community. I don't know if you
remember. I wasn't going to do that reference because it's
but my enthusiasm for that's been deadened by the fact that you've already mentioned ADHD. So you've said it, so you may as well go ahead.
Several times. Oh, calm down, blah, blah, blah. Right. What does the research say? That's what people want, isn't it? Everybody wants that. About interoception and ADHD. There was a recent review, and it looked at 18 studies. Not many, but not none. And they threw together studies that used heartbeat tracking. Can you count your own heartbeats and so on? Self-report questionnaires, people with and without an ADHD diagnosis saying, I can do this. And then folks in the Gen Pop who just happen to score high on ADHD traits. And that doesn't mean ADHD people. That can be an advantage. That's the problem with this. Short version, yeah, Slightly longer version, people with ADHD probably have poorer interoception, probably. And that Caroline Williams, because we're in the pocket of Big Caroline, probably told us that as well. The same thing, probably. Out of only 5 studies that directly compared ADHD and non-ADHD groups. 3 found worse in us, and in 12 studies looking at general ADHD traits in attention, impulsivity, emotional chaos, dodgy executive function, etc. Higher ADHD symptoms pretty consistently linked to weak interoceptive ability. There you go. That's your ADHD, man?
I'm sorry to non-academics out there, but I'm going to do another academic joke. When you were reviewer number 2, did you ever just go, yeah, which is what you said in short about the quality of the evidence?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God, I was a horrible. It's so reviewing was the worst thing ever.
Yeah, and reading the reviews of my papers second worst. So on that note, you kind of hinted at the studies being shit. Are any of them good? There's a thing particularly with reviews called garbage in, garbage out, which is you can meta-analyze a load of shit and get a shit answer. So yeah, Gigo. So is that what this is or what?
Yeah, they're not exactly bulletproof, James, as you well know. James asked that because he's read them. Jesus. And this is because we don't fund the researchers, fantastic researchers, properly, so they can't afford to look at thousands of people. It's not shit scientists, it's poor funding. Most had small sample sizes, and so the reporting was patchy.
Sample sciences, Alex.
Did I say sciences? It's
yes,
cut that in post.
Yeah, I will definitely cut that in post.
Got a guy. Definitely. Screw you. Yeah, sample sciences isn't not probably at Wolverhampton. You didn't do that. So the review of the paper said that culture plays a role in how we experience and report bodily sensations. So what feels like tension in one culture might be described differently in another, which is fun. And we noticed that, don't we? So the word anxiety strictly probably psychologically means stress without a stressor. But if something's bothering you, like somebody says, I'm angry with you, I say, I feel anxious about that. But strictly, that's stress, not anxiety. And we don't use them all in the same way because we're people. Despite the wonky data, however, the takeaway does seem to be if you've got ADHD or a brain that occasionally shits itself, your ability to notice or correctly interpret what's going on inside your body might be a bit rubbish, which probably could explain why we're constantly confusing hunger with anger or with anxiety with maybe I just need the toilet.
And why, Alex? Why, Alex?
Why ADHD is linked to interoception? Well,
I don't know.
You wrote why and you don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Amazing. It's a good question, though, that I've paraphrased more helpfully. All of them. All of the things. Inattention. If you are distracted, the less likely you are to notice or stay on notice of what your body's up to, Your Honour. If you're being hijacked by shiny things, a subtle internal signal like you're tired, do not say yes to the outing, or you're hungry or thirsty, they just don't land properly. There was a study that found poor interoceptive accuracy might fully explain the link between inattention and binge eating. Because if you don't know you're full, and humans in general are very shit at that, so even worse for us, why would you stop eating? Look at hyperactivity, impulsivity. If you have higher levels of what is inaccurately described as fidgety chaos, you could show and will show reduced interoception. You can imagine that hyperactivity might compensate for a low internal stimulation or even awareness. So like not knowing what's going on, well, I'll just move about then. And now emotional dysregulation. Interoception is crucial for emotional awareness. Again, pocket of Big Caroline, she says that RSD is real for us. Even an emotional dysregulation does seem to be linked to this. You might miss any early signs of those emotions ramping up. And the key advice, James, isn't it, for fucking ED is spot the triggers. And we can't. We can't. You do not notice you're getting angry until you've already called your partner a womble's cock. Poor interoception might make it, and does, harder to identify, understand, or regulate those emotions. Emotional chaos is common in ADHD, and that could be why. Finally, executive dysfunctions. Interoception feeds into attention and decision-making and working memory, because you've got to think about how it will make you feel and how you currently feel to do shit. And you need those same functions to process. It's a two-way mess, synergy. So if you've got weak interoception, it's not just your feeling. I did the David Brent face, if you're wondering. It's not just your feelings that suffer. Planning, impulse control, and memory might suffer too. All of those things, remember, as I always say to James, they stack up as well. You don't, James, that means you don't have them individually. The ADHD traits stack up.
When you came up with that whole concept of stacking, I mean, it blew my mind so much that it took me a week before then to come up with it. I've remembered why.
It took a whole week in advance of me reading it off of a text from you for you to realise.
I've remembered what I meant by asking why. I meant the biology of it, you big twat.
Oh, it's the brain, Brian. It's the brain.
I walked into that.
You did. Did you know that brain areas are complicated and implicated in interoception? Do you want me to tell you brain names, even though I don't know what they are and you learn them?
Yes, please.
There's the insula, which I like. It's the main hub we have in our brain for reading internal signals. And in ADHD, there do seem to be both structural and functional differences, including poor error detection and underactivation. I don't know if I'm hungry. I think I'm thirsty instead. That's messing up how we interpret all body signals. It's not just hunger and thirst. They're the ones James and I think about all the time for blood. In my case, the anterior cingulate cortex, this has come up loads of times. That means fronty bit that looks like a belt that's on the outside of the brain. And this works with the insula, handles stuff like emotional regulation, monitoring conflict, James, and those oops, I did it again moments when we accidentally watch Britney Spears again on YouTube. We know that the ACC, the anterior cingulate cortex, probably works differently and looks differently in us. And finally, our frenemy, the PFC, the prefrontal cortex. It talks to the insula and ACC, often through dopaminergic neurons, helping regulate behavior based on internal signals. And unless your PFC is about as good at communication as James, which in ADHD it is, that's ADHD, James. That's how that's spelt. There are other brain areas, but the length... Amazing. AFHD, James wrote. There are other brain areas, but the length of the episode is boring me and James and Sam and anyone who was listening for the first 15 minutes, which isn't that many people.
Yeah. We'll take a break and we'll be back for something I don't know what in part 2. See you in a bit.
Tips.
Alex, hi.
Aight. What's up? Hello, Governor.
Welcome back to episode 191 of the ADHD Adults podcast, where James and I, and sadly not Mrs. ADHD, are discussing ADHD and interoception. It's a particular shame because she would say, oh, I don't know what this is and can't do that. Oh, I'm great at that. For example, when I can't do that. As always, probably in part 2, we're taking personal reflections on interoception, which will be, let's say, inaccurate. And we're taking James's tip.
Ding. Now, are we?
Yeah, give it us.
Yes. Right. I'll give it in a minute. You can have it in a minute, Alex. You have to wait for the pudding. None of this is working. I'm still very tired. For me, this all depends on how focused I am on something. And the classical example of when you're in hyperfocus and you don't notice that you're hungry or thirsty, or in Sam's case once that she menstruated, through her clothes, or you're in pain, is a really good, I think, example of how your levels of focus can impact this. What generally happens to me is I don't know if I'm thirsty because I take stimulant meds. I often, genuinely don't feel hungry. It's very binary for me. On meds, no hunger. Off meds, I want to eat everything. With thirst, because it's kind of the one we always talk about in ADHD. If my mouth isn't dry as it is now, I don't think I feel thirsty. And unless I have I'll come back to this in my tip, 2 bottles of drink made up at the start of the day, it can often be lunchtime before I think, have I had a drink? Should I have a drink? So working memory plays a part as well. If you've got poor interoception, you can just make a drink and walk away from it and then not know if you've drunk it. So I always kind of assume that I'm hydrated, that I'm okay. My general sense of what's going on in terms of my heartbeat, I can't feel it. And when I look at my watch and it says your average beats per minute was 112 today, I think, okay, that's not good when you're taking stimulant medication. Yeah, but it can change from 80 to 100 over the course of a week, average for a day, and I don't notice any difference.
It's
I'm very aware
stress,
of,
isn't it?
yeah, it is. I'm very aware of pain, but that's nociception, and temperature, and that's thermoreception, so they're slightly different. But it's interesting that even though I'm aware of kind of temperature, apparently I sweat like a beast of the field in bed, and even when I kind of don't sleep and just lie there internally screaming, I'm not aware of the bed being a bit moist from my sweating, which could just be a sensory thing. So I generally am not aware of what's going on inside my body, but particularly if I'm focused on something. So if it's, when you're in crisis mode, like recently, because I've been having to work from mums because the NHS tend to give people who are just turning blind a series of eye drops, which all look the same and which are all tiny and which they obviously can't apply to their own eyes. And kind of being over there and having to focus on that means I have drunk less and noticed less about myself because I'm kind of laser focused on a crisis mode type situation. So I honestly don't know if it's good or bad. I think I've probably got bad interoception. I would imagine worse than the average non-Dracula. But that's all. I think that's all I can say. In terms of a tip, I mentioned earlier about the drinks. It often comes to trying to build a routine, particularly for things where poor interoception can have a negative impact, like not drinking, not eating. So trying to get into the habit of making up 2 big drinks at the start of the day and putting them wherever you tend to work, using whatever external reminders or accountability works for you to have a break. And then if you can do it, trying to do body scans, which obviously my brain rejects because it's sitting there still for a while. See if you can feel what's going on inside your body. Be mindful of how your body feels, because I am never mindful of that. And that's me done. What about you, Alex?
I really like this one because it's asking people who don't know what they feel and what they think, whether they're good at that. I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? As MC Hammer said, and I say this a lot, when measuring, include the measurer. There is really nothing we can do to improve this, I don't think. There is only outside intervention. I said to, I don't know if you know, but we're in the pocket of Big Caroline Williams. And I said to her, when I was asking about interoception the other day, my whole life feels like the engine warning light is on, and I've no idea why. And I probably stole that because I steal everything, but I don't know where from. Because it really is, accurate. And Caroline said back, alexithymia is being able to express your feelings and to yourself and to other people. And it's not a clinical term, but it's a descriptive trait that's common in ADHD. And loads of stuff that I think, God, I haven't got a clue. Dreadful at it. But what's different about me compared to, for example, James, is self-esteem. And what that means is that I can do something about it by asking for help and taking the help. And I think that's where we differ, isn't it? It's a big thing that you would. Is that fair to say? I think what I do is I ask people. I call this the ABCs. And so I ask them and I believe their answer, because the thing they're telling me about me, I ask someone I trust, obviously. So when do you notice I do that or react like that? Or if I'm snappy, I don't know why. And it frustrates me. I look for those triggers, but I don't know what they are, even though they're fucking obvious to the people around me. So I ask people I trust and they tell me the answer. And this is the B. I believe their answer rather than believe my belief. So these internal things, I'm a hero. We would never get snappy about, like, there's an event coming up that I'm frightened of, so I'm going to be angry for the 6 days leading up to it, and I don't know why. So I believe them. They're like, well, it's probably because you've got that coming up, even though it's objectively a small thing. Subjectively, it's massive. And then, not this one's not for James because it won't help. Is a bit of self-care. So care for C, ABC. It's doing something about it. What can I do when the trigger that someone's told me about that I'm now believing happens, how do I say, oh, well, I won't be going to that then plenty of time in advance? And it's really tricky that, because, you know, you feel like a piece of shit, don't you? But it's the only thing I can do to protect myself, and it works. And ironically, it allows me the freedom to decide to go later and enter into the world a little bit more. Not a lot, but a little bit more. And that's the only reflection and tip I've got about this, James.
It did remind me actually that I should probably add that having a buddy system really works. Before Sam got tired for a prolonged period of time,
Yeah,
you know, some mornings I would make drinks for both, some mornings she would. So between us, we had a system where we would drink. We are both better at spotting if the other might be showing signs of stress or anxiety or anger. So the yellow flags we can spot in each other. But it's interesting that when that's kind of gone, I'm less able to do the obvious stuff for myself or to spot in myself if I'm, you know, a bit off, because obviously I'm a bit off all the time.
I note them down literally when people tell me what they are, especially you and both my brothers, and the old ball and chain. That's a 1980s way of saying, like, the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. Those are some people that I not trust the opinions of. And so I write it down. So sometimes you'll say to me, James, oh, like a good example is when I get risk, like I don't know, I'm feeling anxious about spending £3 on something, and I would have it written down. Okay, remember what James says about that you get, that's a feeling that isn't appropriate. And so I literally make notes of this shit, because otherwise I haven't got a clue what's going on, let alone
Amazing.
first. Yeah.
Got time for a
Awful.
quick game, Al?
Oh, I've just checked. No.
Don't know what you checked with, because we have. Have I done USB with you? USB?
No.
No. Okay. This is about USB then.
If we have, I'll laugh.
I've got. This is. But if you're not watching on video, this makes no sense. This is a container full of USB cables. Yeah, grey bag full of USB cables nested atop a pile of USB cables in a drawer.
Yeah,
So
I've got a box with USB cables written on it, with loads of USB cables on top of the box.
Amazing. It's exactly perfect system. Anyway, I ordered more, but got it wrong, obviously. So did I order some? But they got sent to the wrong address, because it was recently my niece Harriet's birthday, and I'd sent something to my mum's house. So did I not change the address and they got sent there? That's number one. Happy birthday. Number two, also known as B. Did I order the wrong type? I mean, not like me. Send them back and then order the same type again.
I hate it when they're so similar. They're so likely, both of them.
And well, I'm not going to make it that easy, am I?
No.
Everyone hates this anyway. I'm dragging it out just for my own pleasure.
Yeah, they don't.
And then option trois. Did I forget that I'd upgraded my phone, which didn't have a lightning connect to the old Apple ones, but a USB, so ordered the wrong cable?
Oh, I bet if it isn't whichever two it isn't, you've done them. That's the problem with this. So it's just about the most recent.
At some point,
one.
Yeah.
You've done all of those three for sure. That's good. I think that it's not the lightning cable one, because you've got one of those old Samsungs from 1783. I don't think it was the wrong type of cable you ordered, because I can't think of a funny joke. I think you sent it to the wrong address. I can see by your face you're all happy.
Yeah, of course you can.
It's the first one, wasn't it? It's the first one I said wasn't true, so it's number 3. Twice.
No, it's the middle one. I ordered.
I hate
it was meant
this
to
game
USB-C
so much.
to USB-C, but I ordered normal USB-C to USB-C, sent them back, and then ordered exactly the same ones again.
Almost all cables seem to be bloody USB-C to USB-C nowadays, and no one wants that.
Oh my God, you're getting old. Grumbling about USB cables and how they're all this way these days. Amazing.
And they make the writing too small.
On that, and they definitely do that. Don't get me started on that. On that note, we'll take a break and we'll be back in part 3 soon in a bit.
I hate this game.
Womble's Cocks.
Hello and welcome back to episode 100. No, I've got it wrong. Of the ADHD. What's the podcast called? I come from Stoke. I can't do her accent because it's not even full Stoke. It's watered down Stoke. Anyway, in part 3, we answer some questions. There's just two of us, so we're going to do 2 questions. Have you got one, Alex?
I have. Yes. It's from Alex. Well, that's confusing, bearing in mind the shtick. It's not me, obviously. It's different Alex. It says, "Good day, dickheads. I mean, Dracula, Madam Chaos, and Balluno. I am one of your Australian listeners. Yes, Alex, you can do a shit Australian accent. I don't know if that means you're able to or you have permission to, but I'm going to go with it. And I have been since the start. I'm also named Alex. So sorry, Mrs. ADHD, if this makes understanding the question is coming from me, Alex, and not Alex. Alex, confusing. That's so much fun to do. But bad.
What? That wasn't even Australian.
No, I don't know. I mean,
No,
it's not a surprise. Firstly, Alex continues to say, "Thank you for all you do for the eclectic bunch of weirdos that are the ADHDers. You have helped me understand so much about ADHD that I'm not alone or broken. You've opened my eyes to so many parts of ADHD, some helpful, some not. So thank you." Nice. I don't know if it means some of our bits are helpful or some bits of ADHD. My question, before I forget, get sidetracked or try and do something else, is about pathological demand avoidance, PDA, and oppositional defiance disorder, ODD, in ASD and ADHD people. How common is it? What can be done to help it? And why, like a lot of shit things that go with neurospiciness, is it there and so fucking hard to stop? Keep up the great work, the light-hearted attacks on each other, and the helpful rubbish that you speak. Cheers, Alex. Goodness. We haven't talked about this, James, and I have very specific thoughts about these terms. I'm really interested if we disagree scientifically.
Yeah. So first of all, I think it's really important to remind you we have talked about PDA in an episode on ADHD and PDA. We didn't like the name. We prefer extreme demand avoidance because, as we talked about at the time, pathological takes away your autonomy, and it also doesn't point out the fact that, and there isn't a lot of research, but it does make sense that a lot of this in ADHD is driven by anxiety. And if you look at ODD, you know this better than I. It's not technically an adult part of the diagnostic framework,
not
is
at
it?
all.
It's kind of thought,
It can't be.
thought that we grow out of it. But I know many people with ADHD that are very, very oppositional. What I'd say about demand avoidance, just to remind people that maybe didn't listen, because why would you, to our early episode, is it's not just external demands. It's not just me saying, Alex, put your trousers on, and you saying, no, I won't, not until they finished. It's often internal. And the best example I can give is me and emails. So when I was an academic, I used to answer 150 emails a day, and the motivation was fear. It was, I'm afraid if I don't answer these emails, I'll be seen as being, less in this environment full of super clever people. They weren't. Now I don't have that fear. I have massive demand avoidance for email. So I'll get up in the morning, I'll open my inbox with the intention to answer emails, and there'll just be 10 or 15 there, and I will avoid that demand. It's very closely related to kind of task initiation, but it's also driven by anxiety. So I think if you were to look at demand avoidance from a slightly different angle, it would be very, very common in ADHD, because it's not just those external demands, it's the internal decision making. That's a demand. Choosing to intend to engage with something, that's a demand, and I think it's massively common. What about you, Balluno?
Right. This is my professional thoughts on it. I think the learned avoidance from small traumas, and they are traumas, however small, they're trauma to you, like the email thing, is more common in ADHD, definitely, and it's why we withdraw a lot from the world. I think pathological demand avoidance is more so, for example, I say no to everything immediately, even things I like. And it's so I'm not sure I have PDA, but I'm not a million miles away. And that's, even if I want to do it and I've had no experience with it in the past, my brain goes, just fucking say no to everything people ask. And it's horrible because it's not who I am and who I want to be. It's an annoyance. ODD is something else. Oppositional defiance disorder, again, only in children, is wildly extreme. It's it's not common, but it is more in ADHD. And it's in general, and I am generalizing, children with ODD, ADHD or not, will go on to have an extreme mental health diagnosis like narcissistic syndrome or something horrible. Personality disorder, I hate that term, but ODD is really extreme. I think the tendency to have ODD is what we spot in young children with ADHD because it's comorbid. And one of the reasons why that a lot of like Katie right at the start didn't get diagnosed is because there's not ODD there, you know. And I think the naughty boys smashing up schoolrooms, I'm not sure that's ADHD that they're spotting. It just highlights that they've got it. And this is not science klaxon, but my observation and experience and reading suggests that that might be something we need to have a look at. But ODD is really extreme. PDA is horrible and widespread, and learned avoidance is incredibly common because of growing up with ADHD. Those are my thoughts on it.
Yeah, what can be done to help it? I honestly don't know how. I mean, PDA being like a profile on the autism spectrum and not this kind of its own entity. My only lived experience is about those kind of largely internal demands, but so I have nothing for that.
So time. Give yourself time when being asked something. Don't, like, I always have a thing, don't I? And this is because of my PDA, which is, if you're asking me now, it's a no. I know. And what was that? What was the?
That's because obviously I coach people who are aware of you. You on your coaching course have people who know me, and it's annoying. I think we both get annoyed when the other gets praise.
Oh,
like,
hate it.
So people will say to me in a coaching session, and no, of course I fully adopted. If it's no, it's no. And I actually get a bit angry in a coaching session,
that's
like jokingly, and I'll say, "Oh, for God's sake, I can't believe you've listened to something Alex has said."
Yeah, correct. So
can I ask you
therapy? Yeah, go on.
No, sorry. If you were still talking about, carry on.
Just quickly, therapy really, it's all self-analysis of what the triggers are. Have a look, and I write it down. I write down what I want to achieve, and not just like if I'm allowed to go away and think about it. If that's allowed, then it's a meaningful question, and I can answer it with the real me rather than that little prick that says no immediately. That was all.
The thing that interested me is from knowing you for far too long.
Yeah,
I mean, Christ, it's my 15th wedding anniversary today.
Yeah, and I was there.
And yeah, I know, wearing that fucking I'd say cataract, but a lens over your eye, contact lens with a heart, weren't you? Yeah, it wasn't even a fancy dress wedding, but he turned up wearing a contact lens with a heart. It was ridiculous. But I've known you for even longer, and that seems tortuous. But I think from knowing you, you have demand avoidance about decisions. So I think.
Oh yeah, PDA, absolute PDA.
Yeah,
not like everything.
Decisions.
Yeah, right, okay. Always.
And is that where time helps?
Time helps, and taking advice again. It's the ABCs of believing your friends, and I note down what you tell me, and I make a note of it, and yeah, it does. But it is always there, other Alex, and so I take a bit of time to have a think about what my values are and what I want to do, and see if it's still a no, or see if there's a way I can make it self-authored. So, sort of make it my idea to do it rather than saying yes to a request. That's and make the outcome making that person happy instead of doing that thing. That's what I do.
Both of those are possible things. I have, yes, and it's not from someone called James, annoyingly. It's from Anna. If it's the Anna that I think it is, she's awesome. If it's not Anna, you're still awesome. It says, Anna, the most boring name on the planet, but it is a palindrome, so it's sort of cool.
Yeah, that's
you'll
cool.
Enjoy that, Alex.
Hello,
team, especially Mrs. ADHD, whom I wish was my best friend. Sorry, she's not here, Anna, but I'll pass it on. I'm sure she actually listens when she's not on these episodes. I know that. I know. I don't know how. I have a small photography art practice as a side hustle. I think I'm pretty good at taking photos, and have been a winner and or a finalist in a few major awards and sold the odd print. I have a Master of Arts in photography. No wonder you're good. And I'm looking to do my PhD eventually. Perpetual student problem in brackets. My issue is my inability to stick to one style or genre, which is apparently the golden rule of being successful as an artist. While doing my master's, I struggled so much with developing a single idea, and I chopped and changed until I had 3 months left. I finally produced a portfolio of completely new images, nothing like what I'd taken over the previous year. I couldn't pull a cohesive portfolio together if I tried. It's like I try something, master it, and move on to something new, while the rest of my cohort has established themselves with their specific styles and processes that make them stand out. Is this inability to find my photography jam? I've now got an image of, like, in the fridge, a pot of photography jam.
Photography jam.
Which is spread on. No, you wouldn't put on toast. Jam's awful on toast. Anyway, and is this an ability to find my Jam's
I'm not
awful
getting
on
into that. It's bullshit.
Yeah, that's a whole episode.
Mm.
Is this inability to find my photography jam because my brain is dysfunctional, or am I really just a shit photographer after
It's the
all?
first one.
Alex, yes.
It's just
Go
the first
on.
one. Just says, James, how was your research career? Because as everyone knows, what you have to do, and I'm quoting Anna now, is the golden rule is stick to one theme for your career. Only do that. James?
I was going to say this. It's such like a parallel track to my academic career. I started
And
off
mine.
working as a basic cell biologist, looking at hormones
Well,
that are
nurse.
secreted from fat. That was before I broke my back, and then managed to get into science. So I was looking in cells of the body at the effect that fat hormones have on them, and then that moved into hormones that regulated appetite, and then that moved into every different area: breast cancer, polycystic ovarian syndrome, type 2 diabetes, aging, where I was a biogerontologist for ages, physiology, exercise physiology.
You know how I'm a professor of medical human brain science? My PhD
Yes.
is in plants, James.
I know. I find
That
that
is fucking
endlessly hilarious.
genetics, so it's the same genes, but mental. Yeah, I mean, my CV, every single employer I've ever had as a scientist said this. What they say to you, what they said to me was, "What's this random bullshit?"
Yeah, and that's the thing
there's no answer.
Yeah, traditionally, to be a successful, externally successful anything, you need to have that like niche, particularly in science. You're the person that always works on that molecule or that cell or that condition. And I suppose similarly to photography, Alex and I reached a level of success we probably wouldn't normally have because we had something else about us, which was science communication. And if we hadn't have had that, then I can imagine we'd probably still be very unhappy academics, or I certainly would be anyway. And I think that reframing what you've said about not having a specific style and accepting the fact that your style changes actually gives you a strong position, because it's not, I will always shoot in this style, or this is my oeuvre. It's actually, look at these different styles in which I can shoot. But that's very much my academic career.
It's so good, James. And I created a post-hoc analysis of my career in exactly the same way you described. And I think Anna can too. So I reckon you can always create a narrative to explain what the path was. So I would say to Anna, what was the move? What was in common? And what were you exploring by changing? And make that change exploration the niche. So like an evolution of, it could be anything. It could be light, it could be composition, doesn't matter. So that's what I did in my career. Is I was exploring, how can these different parts of the brain compare to plant genetics? And you make that the thing. And I think you did that too. That's why you're a science communicator, right? You talk about everything and do.
Right. What I'm about to say is never going to be said again. And I will probably edit it out afterwards. Meeting you and working at Warwick is the thing that changed my career. If I hadn't found somebody else that was as fucked up as me, but who had the same approach to things, I would have been this isolated person that didn't speak to anybody and hated it. But that change from doing the stuff that I did into branching out into stuff that made me happy, and then science communication, was because of meeting you.
Yes, probably similar actually. I think when you left Warwick, it was horrible for a while. I used to be, it was just like, I didn't want to be like those people. It was so boring. Still don't. That was awful.
Anyway, yes, it was working with you, and it still is. That was episode 191 of the ADHD Adults podcast, where we talked about ADHD and interoception, mentioned Womble's cocks, and probably some other stuff. If by miracle, this is from the last episode, if by miracle you bounce back from listening to this episode, that's last week's episode on resilience. Why not compound your self-abuse by looking at our website? Somebody got in touch to say you can't get in touch on the website. I need to look at that. Or pre-ordering a book that came out now over 2 months ago.
Oh God, it's just occurred to me that our publisher's going to say, what the fuck are you doing promoting Carl Williams' book and not your own? Oh, shit. We're so sorry. We are terrible at this.
We are ADHD Unpacked, available in some good books, in good bookshops. If you can get it. It's really good.
bookshops.
Apparently,
Yeah.
yes, 1 star. It's not waterproof. Anyway, bye.
Bye all.
Trigger warning, klaxon. Klaxon, 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 big klaxon. No. Trigger warning, klaxon. Klaxon, klaxon.